Hey, what's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to my F1 2017 Career Mode, episode number 81 today for the start of Season 5 at the Australian Grand Prix. But before we get to Australia, of course, we need to pick our team. At the end of the last episode, the end of Season 4, we confirmed we are going to leave Red Bull, and we had three choices. We had Mercedes, Williams, or Force India. Now, after kind of debating with myself in my head of what I wanted to do and maybe what I felt was like the right choice, looking through the comments of the last episode, and I did also a quick little Twitter poll yesterday, I'm going to be going with Force India for Season 5. Let's hit it.
Right, I've had a chat with the new team, and they're really excited to get going. And the facilities look promising. I'll see you once you're settled in, okay?
Right, so Chris seems pretty damn positive about the team, and as per usual at the start of a new season with a new team, it's time to get ourselves familiarised with the place. Obviously, we're in this now new pink livery with pink umbrellas, pink cushions, and pretty much pink everywhere. But we're going to get into the R&D tree, which is going to be the most important part to really get a sense of where the team's developed so far, you know, in the first 4 seasons as an AI team, and where we could look into. Now, obviously, having a Mercedes engine, they haven't done too much on the engine development. They've done a bit more on fuel efficiency rather than actual fuel power. They've done 2 apiece, pretty much. They've done the first 2 of that branch, and then the next 2 are fuel efficiency upgrades. They've done quite a bit on the durability, 2 on the internal combustion engine, 2 on the MGUH, none on the MGUK, actually, surprisingly, and 1 apiece on the turbocharger. So that's going to be pretty useful. Obviously, the turbocharger was a big issue for us last season. The internal combustion engine was also an issue with Red Bull. We had done none, basically, so it's going to be good in terms of reliability, I think, and they've done plenty on aerodynamics. Of course, Force India actually start off as one of the worst teams on aerodynamics, pure aerodynamics. I think they start off maybe after the patch, I think, is meant to be 3rd worst on that grid on the right-hand side, so they've done plenty of that, and they pretty much maxed out a lot of those branches of the trees. And then when we get onto the chassis, they've done about halfway. I think pretty much the same that we got up to with Red Bull, really. So I think that's going to be another large area, once again, for us to develop on. But I think as we move on to the heart of the season, we'll probably be focusing more on aerodynamics. You can see we've got the kind of major and ultimate upgrades left to do at that bottom part of the R&D tree, which are going to be quite hefty, and we're going to have a lot of wait time. So this may be a very patient season in terms of R&D development, and we may not see rapid increase of performance, but where the car is right now, you've got to say it's pretty solid. In terms of the actual, you know, on paper tree, we're apparently above Renault still, but I still maintain that chart really does not mean much in the grand scheme of things. But looking back at last season, obviously, Force India kind of, they're sort of thereabouts, you know, chasing after the Mercedes guys almost, and Renault when they had poor races individually relatively to their performance. Of course, back in Season 3, Perez won the Mexican Grand Prix in Season 3, so this team has already won a race without me involved. So, looking forward to this one. Obviously, just having a Mercedes engine, which I know a lot of you guys in the comments below were banging on about of being quite a big deal in terms of finally I'm not going to be driving a Renault-powered car, because that's, you know, obviously quite a weird fun fact that I've been driving nothing but Renault-powered cars so far on the F1 2017 game. So it is going to be also personally quite nice to be driving a Mercedes engine. Obviously, the Force India is the 3rd most powerful car on the grid behind the Williams and Mercedes cars. Even the Ferrari, even though last season definitely did show that it was good in a straight line, is still technically apparently meant to be a little bit slower in a straight line than this Force India car. So looking forward to that, and really it's going to be all about trying to make up the most time in the corners then, because we can gain it back a little bit in the straights. So the better job we can do in the corners, the better lap time obviously we'll try and get over the course of a lap on any circuit. But you can see going to Q1 then, and not the best turn 1 then, you can clearly see my kind of getting used to the Force India compared to the Red Bull car. The turn-in definitely wasn't as instant. You know, the Red Bull had a very sharp front end, whereas the Force India has a bit more of a delicate one. Kind of have to feed the car in a little bit more delicately and kind of just brake a little bit earlier, kind of. And you can see in Q1 then, being out-qualified by Sergio Perez so far in that session, but we make it through to Q2, obviously, and the only man on super softs then is Sebastian Vettel on that first qualifying session. Speaking of super soft tyres then, though, as Vettel goes fastest in the Q2 session so far, we are now on the set of super soft tyres. Obviously, I'm going to learn a lot from what happened last season. Obviously, last season there was some rain involved in this race, so that does change things. I still maintain that I tried my best in that Red Bull with the 2-stop, but now I think the forecast is going to be pretty much dry, so the best bet for us, especially in the Force India, like we did with the Renault, like we did with the Toro Rosso, is going to be trying this audacious 1-stop around Australia Australia. We're the only person to qualify on the super softs then. We just about make it into Q3 then, actually. So that's a feeling that I'm going to have to kind of get used to maybe once again. Unlike the Red Bull days, I may not be a guaranteed top 10 contender on super soft tyres or the second fastest compounded tyre. I'm actually going to have to maybe work for it. And there may be instances where I get knocked out in Q2, unfortunately. But for now, we're good. We're into Q3. And thankfully for me, obviously you guys have heard me bang on about it plenty enough so far. But the sun kind of went away a little bit in Q3 as it was overcast conditions at the start of my flying lap. So thankfully, no sun glare in my eyes. I still managed to lock up in the second last corner though. And so we come through the last corner, revving out in fourth gear. Obviously by season 5, every team's developed quite a bit on downforce. And so these cars feel awesome through that last corner. So we come across the line, pretty nifty lap time I thought, pretty clean. And at the moment we're in P3 as people are now sitting there one and only flying laps now. And you can see a little bit of a kind of a sheen on the track surface. And my engineer did tell me as I finished the lap that there was some rain to come maybe at the very end of this session. So that may change the track conditions somewhat. So here's hoping we can end off this session and start off this new season with Force India pretty damn strong in qualifying then. You can see at the moment Max Verstappen on a provisional pole position with Ricciardo then in second. As we go on to the end of the session then Vettel manages to get that second place and knock Ricciardo back onto the second row. We come home in P7, which is a pretty staple position for us, you know, pre-Red Bull era with the Renault team a lot of the time. And we have been out-qualified by Sergio Perez, both Mercedes cars. Those two are the big blunders there in P8 and P9. So, I don't know, maybe a mistake on their outlaps. We've seen the AI make mistakes sometimes, which is kind of nice to see, really. He keeps it a bit more fresh if they can make some mistakes in qualifying. We saw back in last season at Mexico, the two Ferraris did pretty much the same as Mercedes right now and bottled it to the back end of the top 10. But Max Verstappen then, the man I replaced at Red Bull last season, is back in the Red Bull team and is on pole position. So you can see the work I did on that Red Bull car. But anyways, I think P7's pretty solid for us. So let's go onto the full grid and then get onto the race.
Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he starts from pole position, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Sergio Perez, and Raikkonen, a Force India, Hamilton, Bottas, and Jolyon Palmer, Massa, Magnussen, Romain Grosjean, and Kvyat, Alonso, Stroll, Stoffel Van Dorn, and Marcus Ericsson, Wehrlein, and Carlos Sainz starts from the back of the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Right, so here we are then for the first race for Force India here at the Australian Grand Prix. P7 today, and we're going to be trying that one-stop strategy, super soft to the soft tyres, filling up on about 1.5 of fuel. Of course, the Force India is not going to be as fuel efficient as the Red Bull, actually, having done a few less upgrades, but it's still going to be a bit more fuel efficient than I was used to back in Renault and Toro Rosso. So not overboard, but still enough to use rich mix and use that Mercedes engine to good use. So here we go then. It's a 5 red lights for the start of Season 5 at the Australian Grand Prix. Final lights are out and we're underway, and it is a pretty okay start for us compared to Kimi Raikkonen. Then it's a good start for Valtteri Bottas, trying to maybe make a move on the left-hand side. I'm going to dart to the inside of Raikkonen, then to the inside of turn 1, and Bottas is going to feed it through on the left-hand side. I think he's still just about there. No, we can just get ahead of him then, and we'll keep P7, so no positions gained so far for us. Meanwhile, up ahead, they go 3 wide, the Renault, Red Bull, and Ferrari car of Max Verstappen, who's lost it off pole position then, Sebastian Vettel and Nico Hülkenberg, who just about gets squeezed out then on the exit, as we've now gone around the outside of the fin of Kimi Raikkonen. We're going to squeeze him out on the right-hander there, normally flat out in qualifying. Little lift off here on lap 1, but we're up the order and into P6, and now we can stare at the back of our teammate Sergio Perez. But at the moment then, it's Daniel Ricciardo with a very commanding lead. You can see he just goes off the screen there, so there's quite a huge gap then to Sebastian Vettel in second place. So Verstappen off pole position, very uncharacteristically has a really poor first lap in opening turn 1 and is down in P3. There you can now see as we swing through the laps, and I think this is lap 4, and you can see the gap is ever growing between Ricciardo and Vettel. You can't even see them on the same piece of the replay camera here. And Verstappen, though, is still trying to chase down Vettel as hard as he can, and clearly the Red Bull car working very, very well. But the Renault's doing not too badly. Remember, the Renault obviously won this race last season, and so Hülkenberg's still hanging on in P4. Meanwhile, we're right behind Sergio Perez, trying to close up. Of course, we are the only man, as I said, on super soft tyres. So at the moment, it's not entirely crucial maybe for us to overtake Perez, but you can see he is holding us up. He goes defensive into Sector 2, and so I'm kind of wary of Raikkonen behind me. So if we can try and kind of dispatch of Perez, that'd be kind of ideal. But at the moment, obviously, we know from real life how hard Perez may fight his teammates, so I'm a little bit wary of that. And at the moment, I'm not going to make any rash decisions. And of course, naturally, I will get some clean air once these guys come in earlier for their first pit stop from the ultra soft tyres. But it would be kind of more ideal if we can pass him sooner rather than later. But you can see on the mini-map there, look at the distance Ricciardo has. That is just absolutely insane. My former teammate absolutely crushing it in that Red Bull car that I helped made last season. But now we move on then, one lap later to lap 6, locking up into the second last corner, getting right up the gearbox once again of Sergio Perez. Thankfully though, he comes in now as well as Sebastian Vettel, and so you can see the only two cars left on track now in the top flight are myself and Max Verstappen. Raikkonen does stay out for one more lap then, eventually he does come in. So surprisingly, to my surprise, Verstappen is the only man then in the top flight, if you will, in that top 10 battle that stayed out with me all the way to lap 9 here, and he's still on ultra soft. So Verstappen going for a very bold move for maybe converting his start on Ultrasoft to a one-stop, which we've seen the Red Bulls do before in seasons gone by, and also the Ferrari cars, so maybe not out of the question, but just surprising really. But we get a full course yellow, as now we've got Kimi Raikkonen is out of this Grand Prix, and the full safety car has been called out. So my title rival from last season is out of this running Grand Prix for a second time in a row, remember. In season 4, he went out in this exact same spot. I do not know what on earth this game has against Kimi Raikkonen or the Ferrari cars really in career mode, but Raikkonen out in the same exact way he was out in season 4. I believe it was literally the same spot, smoking engine there on the main straight. I think this time he may have got a little bit further down the main straight to park up on the grass there instead of parking it in the middle of the circuit, but still, yeah, very, very unfortunate for Raikkonen. I don't know what he's done. Has he gone to a kind of like a voodoo shop and got cursed or something like that? I'm not too sure. You're going to have to ask him, but yeah, the bad luck continues then clearly for the Ferrari team. Obviously, we've already seen Mercedes bottled in qualifying, and they're struggling in dirty air to overtake any cars at the moment because they're still behind the likes of myself and Perez, and also Jolyon Palmer and Hülkenberg in the Renault. So we come in then for effectively free pit stop almost, basically. You can see Verstappen's coming on the same lap then. I'm on soft tyres, and we are going to try this one stop to the end, and if anything, this safety car is just going to help us do this one stop. So we come out then behind the Toro Rosso car of Carlos Sainz, I think that is. So into turn 1, we're in P4 at the moment, ahead of P5, Nico Hülkenberg, Verstappen in P2, and Ricciardo still maintaining the lead of this Grand Prix. So the safety cars really changed things up. It's demoted Vettel, Hülkenberg, and Perez down the order, but no change then for the two Red Bull guys. Obviously, Verstappen's got promoted effectively, and so now it's back to a Red Bull 1-2, as it maybe was, but throughout qualifying before Vettel obviously snatched that front row off Ricciardo on Saturday. But now we move on to the restart of the safety car then, 2 laps later, lap 11, pretty good restart actually, with rich mix obviously, and now in the slipstream of Sainz, he goes to the middle of the track, so not full defensive, so that still allows us to go down the inside then. We give him the room, brake a little bit earlier because that's a very awkward corner, very easy to pinch the car off onto the gravel there, so giving Sainz all the room I can do and having a fair fight with him. But we're going to stick it to the middle of the track because I can see behind me Hülkenberg in the mirrors then, so I kind of just kept my car in the middle. A little bit awkward for Sainz maybe and Hülkenberg, but that has allowed actually Hülkenberg to go side by side with Sainz and then overtake him on the exit then. But I'm not really bothering about that. All that matters really for us is that we're in P3. But yellow flags out again, and it's going to be for Lewis Hamilton as he swings through that flat out right-hander. He slows down, gets overtaken by my teammate Sergio Perez and Palmer, and pulls up on the left-hand side then, and it's a mechanical failure for Lewis Hamilton. So nothing has really changed from season 4 to season 3. Once again, some of the top runners really having some issues with reliability. So that's Raikkonen out with an engine failure and Hamilton out with mechanical issues of some kind. We don't really know what that's going to be. Maybe a gearbox, maybe some kind of more internal part of the engine, I'm not too sure. But meanwhile then on lap 13, as we swing through the fast chicane then, Hülkenberg with a really good exit then off that corner, and he's going to try and send it to the inside. Even though we're in rich mix, Hülkenberg does have the speed, so obviously we know from last season that Renault engine was actually pretty damn good in the works, Renault, and so we're going to have to try and fend off if we can round the outside. Not going to work out. We're going to try an audacious defensive move to the inside of the second last last corner, but Hulkenberg ultimately is going to have the much better line in through the final corner. Little bit of a lift off there from him through the last corner. Has to compromise our entry to that corner, of course, and he's up the order, and we're going to have to just chase after him and try and re-overtake him if we can. You can see in the background there, Sebastian Vettel just down the road about half a straight, so hopefully we don't get held up by Hulkenberg. If anything, you know, I'd rather just maybe both of us go at a good pace and not be caught by Vettel, if anything, but we'll try our best to maybe try and re-overtake him if we can. But meanwhile then, back at the front, it's Daniel Ricciardo still leading the way then from Max Verstappen. We can see Verstappen still on his tail, but as we swing through then, go through the laps of this Grand Prix, you can see as I'm closing through the second last corner, but just still unable to make anything, and Vettel is closing somewhat on us. You can see getting hit with a wash of dirty air through that final corner, and then down the straight, despite having a Mercedes engine, rich mix flowing, DRS open, that Renault car is still keeping it ahead of us. Obviously, as I said, the works Renault we saw many times before was actually very decent in the straight line due to how many of the chassis weight reductions we did to that car whilst we were driving for them. So kind of unsurprising in a way, and kind of my own kind of wrongdoing of obviously making that car so good in a straight line with the chassis weight reduction. Meanwhile though, there's a bit more luck for my teammate Sergio Perez to overtaking a car down the inside. I think that's Danica Fiat then to the outside of the next corner, and that's going to be a sweet move then for Sergio Perez, and he's up the order. He's a bit down the ways for myself, although, so he has some catching up to do. Meanwhile though, you can clearly see an engine failure for Carlos Sainz, the man who already had an engine penalty at this race. The first Grand Prix you turn up to in a new season, he already had a penalty. I don't know if it was for an engine, maybe he had a penalty from qualifying, maybe he kind of blocked someone, but he was already down in P20 at the start of this race, so just kind of the bad gets worse for Carlos Sainz then, and he's out of this Grand Prix with an engine failure. Meanwhile though, on lap 16 now, with 13 laps to go in this race, we're still doing okay. The tyres are feeling pretty decent on the soft tyres, but you can see we are keeping up with Hulkenberg. We are setting green sectors. So Hulkenberg, as I kind of mentioned this before, sometimes I definitely do drive better when I can see a car right ahead of me when I'm chasing someone down. You kind of get tunnel vision for just chasing off that car. So the lap times are actually improving for me on these soft tyres, but I'm unable to actually just get it past Hulkenberg until we get to lap 17, then the end of it on towards lap 18. He comes in naturally for his second pit stop. As I said, I'm the only one actually, it looks like, maybe trying this one stop today, as Hulkenberg, unlike what he did in season 4 with a one stop, does come in for a second pit stop. So now lap 19 with 10 laps to go, we're in P1 now as Verstappen and Ricciardo have made their pit stops, and now it's just a case of us trying to go as long as we can, well, all the way to the end of the Grand Prix really, and just seeing how we go and seeing what kind of result we can get. It's kind of a bit of a gamble really, because it is quite a long way to go on soft tyres, but we've seen how much the Force India team have developed tyre wear, and we've seen on seasons gone by how well they've gone. Meanwhile though, Nico Hulkenberg closing up on Bottas, that was before he came into the pit, so the only Mercedes left in this race, not really showing too much good pace then, kind of nearly being overtaken before he even makes his second stop of the afternoon. Meanwhile though, this is Verstappen right behind Daniel Ricciardo, and oh, Ricciardo's gone off. Ricciardo's double lock up. Verstappen has forced him into a mistake, and so that's Max Verstappen up into second place of the Grand Prix. Daniel Ricciardo with a really bad mistake. He's been so perfect, pitch perfect this entire race, and up until then, you know, dominating this Grand Prix obviously in the first two stints. That's a crucial mistake, and now it will allow Max Verstappen to be the one Red Bull to chase after me. So this is a battle for first place then. Verstappen has got a really good exit off that corner on the back straight to the outside. I go defensive to the inside. We break a little bit earlier than he does. We're going to do the switchback move on him, and we're going to get that back into first place. So nice and calm, collected. I knew what I was doing. I could see that could work out. It's a wily old fox move that I've done before around this circuit. We've had 4 seasons practice of it so far. So now as we move on to lap 26 then, you can see we got a little bit wayward on the exit here, but the advantage we have down the straight is going to really help us out. Of course, the Red Bull car is going to catch up to us in the corners, but down these straights, every single straight we can get into rich mix, we're going to pull away somewhat, just a little bit, not too much, but we're going to pull away, and that's going to help us. And you can see that coming into play as we move on to lap 28 off the exit of turn 1. Obviously Verstappen does catch up in the corner, but then even in this slipstream here, we're able to keep ahead of him, just park the car in the middle of the circuit then on the racing line pretty much, and he's unable to make a pass so far at the moment. So we move to the end of that lap then, on towards the last lap of the Grand Prix, lap 29, and so far so good. A little bit of a shaky exit then on the last corner, but you can see the tyre wear has been bloody fantastic. Only 42% on the left rear tyre, and pretty much only, I think that was mid 30% tyre wear on the front left and front right. And considering we've been on these tyres for a long time, absolutely excellent tyre wear. Now we go a little bit defensive though. This is the one and only chance that Verstappen's going to maybe have. We go defensive, try and squeeze him to the left, but give him the room there. He's there alongside us, so we have to go the long way round on the left-hander. We'll squeeze him out on the flat-out right-hander. We'll take the corner, that's rightfully ours, and we're back up into P1, and Verstappen has to settle for P2. And meanwhile, behind him, it's going to be Ricciardo that gets held up a little bit, a domino effect, and that may just allow Nico Hülkenberg to make a pass. He's right up the gearbox of the Australian, his home Grand Prix. Vettel not too far behind, but it's been a pretty quiet Grand Prix for Sebastian, of course. Both Ferrari and Mercedes only with one car in this race, and both Vettel and Bottas have had such a quiet Grand Prix. Meanwhile, though, back to this fight then. Hülkenberg and Ricciardo then for P3. Hülkenberg right up the gearbox of Ricciardo. He's had a pretty awesome exit off that corner before, obviously, to overtake me in the Grand Prix previously, and he may just do this same exact move as he did to me down the inside for the last few corners then. And the last up of this Grand Prix, it's going to be Hülkenberg to get that P3 for him and Renault. What a drive there for Hülkenberg on the last lap of the Grand Prix. But as we move through this second last corner, all of that doesn't matter for me. We lock up a little bit, that won't matter. We're in rich mix off the exit of the last corner and across the line. This will be the win at the Australian Grand Prix for Force India, our first race for the team and the first win for the team. Get in there. What a debut for us this season, for this team. What a way to kick off the brand new season and brand new era. That was an absolutely awesome Grand Prix, and that, I will admit, was a very lucky Grand Prix for us strategy-wise, but it paid off. It paid off. The safety car, though, I've got to thank Raikkonen. That safety car really helped out, because you saw there the tyre wear was pretty much non-existent almost of that Force India car. That is a big tribute though to the team, the AI team, doing a lot of work on the tyre wear upgrades for the first 4 seasons. But that safety car really did help out, just stretch the soft tyres a little bit more. But we've seen before, we saw last season how powerful the one-stop was with Hülkenberg, the man who came 3rd place this race. He was the only man to do a one-stop that afternoon in season 4, and he beat me and Bottas, obviously, we were very rapid last season on the 2-stop there. But you can see on the standings now, I was the only man in the top 10 who did a one-stop, and I'm the one who won the race. So a little bit it kind of shows a little bit maybe the flaw in the Australian Grand Prix with the AI. The one stop definitely is so much faster around here, and yet none of the AI did that, and they all did 2 stops. But you know, obviously I'm going to drive as fast as I can, and I will try and always go for the best position I can. And so that today was the win in the Force India. Absolutely awesome. I don't expect this to last long. I don't expect us to be winning a lot of races this season. Especially Bahrain. You guys know how bad I am at that. 2 episodes time, we'll be back to struggling probably, but I'm going to savour this because that was a really hard fought one, trying to keep that tyre wear under control and having to obviously defend from Verstappen right at the death of the last lap. It was definitely a test, but we made it through and we've got that win. Absolutely awesome. So guys, smash that like button for an absolutely awesome first race for Force India. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.